Hi, everyone. I will go ahead and start introducing Miguel. So thanks for coming here today. I know there's a million seminars this week, so I appreciate you showing up at this one. So today I'm really excited for our visitor to present his work. We have Miguel Lagos-Zúñiga, a professor at Universidad Técnica Federico Santa Maria from Chile. So he's traveled quite a far way to be with us, coming all the way from the Southern Hemisphere. So a little background on Miguel. He is a civil engineer with an MS in water resources and environmental engineering. He has a PhD in engineering sciences with a specialization in fluid dynamics from the University of Chile. And he worked 12 years as an associate researcher at the Advanced Mining Technology Center. He's currently an assistant professor at the Department of Civil Works Engineering at the Universidad Técnica Federico Santa Maria, Chile, and an adjunct researcher at the Center for Interdisciplinary Research on Disaster Risk, Resilience, and Recovery. Right now, he teaches hydrology, applied hydraulics, not hydrology, and applied hydrometeorology. His research focuses on water resources and land-atmosphere interactions through the modeling of historical and future climate conditions. And I will add that Miguel is also a really active participant in SAG, so that's how we established this connection. So we're really excited to have him here today. So Miguel, take it away.
Thank you, Erin. Good afternoon. Thanks for being here. Well, I will talk about the Andes, the subtropical Andes, mainly. As you can see in this picture, you can see that there's the tropical Andes with the Andes, the humid Andes, and the Patagonian Andes, the southern Andes. And this region in between, when you see no vegetation, is a subtropical Andes. So these are pretty arid regions. I will present you what are the hypotheses and methodology to do this comparison between global and regional climate models. What the global models, what about the regional climate models, and the role of thermal and humidity in terms of the stability of the atmosphere and the role in precipitation. Finally, some general outcomes, and I will present you very quickly what are we doing in Chile with the WRF-SAC simulations. So the subtropical Andes, as you can see, can be very dry and high. This is the Chilean Altiplano. In the central Andes, you have more humid conditions and altitudes that up above 5,000 meters above sea level. And this is the Patagonia, it's a little lower. This is not subtropical, but also the Andes has very beautiful places. So in the Andes, you have extreme topographic gradients and hydroclimates. You have a critical water supply in one of the driest regions around the world. And also, what it brings me to this research is there is a lot of uncertainty in the global projections for the subtropical Andes. So this is a unique natural laboratory. You can see a lot of things: climates, topography, humid, dry, etc. So what we can see from the interactive IPCC Atlas, this is the projections from the CMIP-6 simulations, and you can see these dashed areas are low model agreement. And you can see in South America, there are more dashed than clean spaces. Even when there's strong signals of this dryness, in this region, you just have like dashed lines. So you have low model agreement, even in CMIP-6 models, CMIP-5 also, and in regional climate models, there are kind of things that doesn't look so similar to the global projection. So we look in that deeper. So what are the drivers? This is the well-known Hadley polar expansion, and this will affect, produces an increased subsidence in this region. Also, you know that there is an enhanced warming in the upper atmosphere that tend to stabilize the atmosphere. And this, of course, when you combine these things, may produce this enhanced subsidence in the subtropics, and this brown line, this is the vertical velocity. So this positive values implies is downward airs. But on the other hand, you know the Clausius-Clapeyron approximation. We expect more humidity and therefore more precipitation. This is what the models expect to do. And also when you see some regional climate models, this is just one realization in 10 kilometers a couple of years ago. And between all this story of a dryness projection, it appears one single simulation that says, oh, there may be a positive, an increase in precipitation. So this is particularly paradoxical. And some studies that have performed some simulations in South America, when activate the convection, they say that these global and even regional simulations may give incorrect conclusions about regional scale precipitation projections. So that's the main thing. And the scientific question I will try to answer is, what are the differences between seasonal and extreme daily precipitation in the subtropics? What are the expected changes in stability in the subtropics? And if there is a relationship between those. So for that, the hypothesis is, in a current climate, this is like a vertical profile or virtual temperature, you can have some instability in the atmosphere. And then you have this upper air enhanced warming that tend to stabilize and diminish the cape of the atmosphere. And on the other hand, you can have this increase in moisture in the surface that tend to instabilize the atmosphere, and also a surface heating that also tend to instabilize. So you have like these two forces interacting, and we can want to address what is the total effect of these two combined effects: the contrast in the static stabilization and the moistening and surface heating, hence instability. So for that, we perform a smaller clustering regional model, because in South America, we don't have many regional simulations. From the CMEP6, we studied regional simulations for seasonal precipitation and air-axis one-day projections in this period. We perform an analysis called potential instability that we'll explain later. And then we try to relate these things. So first, we have an approach of that used Filippo Giorgi 2016 in the Alps, European Alps. And this is the potential stability. It can be, it's the difference between the temperature, equivalent potential temperature in the high atmosphere and the low atmosphere. And you have this negative value, you have an unstable atmosphere. You can use this approximation for expand the virtual equivalent potential temperature, and some approximation of maths are very pretty common in meteorology. You can like expand this expression, and then if you neglect the humidity effect in the upper atmosphere, you can like move from this expression to this one. So additionally, you can like put together in this approximately coefficient beta that may have a slight dependency on temperature, but you have this expression here. So in the left side, you have the dry stability effect, and on the left, you have the moist stability effect. So that's what we analyze in this recently resubmitted paper. Hopefully it gets accepted soon. So the methods that we use, we have an ensemble of 10 regional climate models. This is their drivings, the references, and the grid cell resolution, moves from 0.1 to 0.22 from the Cortex core simulations. And these are some simulations realized by the INPE. This is an institute from Brazil. And we perform these precipitation changes and potential instability. Not in all simulations, as you know, these simulations are very expensive in storaging, so some centers don't keep all these variables, so we couldn't perform in all the simulations. So just getting started. You have a global model. This is projection for seasonal precipitation, and these are the pattern expected. And when you move to a regional climate model, you see a lot of differences. For instance, you can see that this region that is pretty red, it moves to blue, dark blue. So there's a complete shift in precipitation just for the dynamical downscaling processes. And when you look at the extreme precipitation, you see that the signals are quite opposite. For instance, you have here a drying signal and you have here a humid signal. And in the regional simulation, you have also the opposite. So a lot of things are happening between the regional, from the global to the regional climate model. And when you move like for just focus on one regional model. This is the rainbow example, and just don't saturate with a lot of subpanels. You have the warm season in the Austral summer, sorry. And you have, this is the regional climate model with HUD, the Norwegian, and the NPI simulations. And you see that there's a kind of agreement in the changes. And the global simulations, of course, you see more coarse projections. But when you try to do like agreement, in this case, the slash lines are high agreement, you see that the regional climate models tend to agree, are quite more, share the same sign of the change in almost all the domain. So this is an important result, because in the context of a high uncertainty climate change projections, regional climate models can to solve a thing that are not very used in South America and Chile, because they're quite expensive, are based on CMIP 5. Now we're running to CMIP 7, and all this stuff. And when you see the whole ensemble, you see that the regional climate models, between them, you miss like a lot of climate agreement. Even when the global simulations that forced these regional simulations tend to agree, especially in this rain signal in the subtropics. But still, you have some agreement here in the regional climate simulations. But in the northern part, like a lot of uncertainty is still happening. So let's just focus, just cross the Andes and see in which part of the Cordilleras you have positive or negative signs. So here you can see in this box that the Cortex core simulations tend to produce positive increase on precipitation. And this dashed blue line also in some part of the domain shows a positive sign, and the ETA simulations shows negative. But when you have to bet where the model's sign goes up, this could be a good candidate in the foothills of the Andes in the north of Chile. Now, I would just move to the instability projections. What are we expected with the enhanced warming effect in the upper atmosphere? You see, these colors represent the changes in potential instability compared with the surface heating. And you see that all this is blue. So, as is expected, you have more stable conditions for the future climate. And you see the humidity effect, you see like red effect. So, what we expect it to be, But when you add this effect together, you can see like the mix of signs. So almost in the continent, you have a more unstable atmosphere. Not necessarily unstable, but more unstable, because it depends on the reference value that you are comparing with. And finally, just to take a note with the, I think I've been running in my presentation. Yes, I slow a bit down. So when we try to mix what are the changes in the potential instability over the surface heating and the changes in precipitation over surface heating, you can see a lot of things. These dashed lines are the Clausius-Clapeyron approach, 7% per degree. And you can see that it depends on the magnitude, on the potential instability, maybe over the one change, this is dimensionless. You can see that when you have this stronger signal to more unstable precipitation, the model tends to induce higher precipitation changes, but just during the warm season, that is December, January, February, for the southern hemisphere, and in the austral fold. So these led us, I think, more questions than answers, because as you can see, there's a lot of diversity on these results. And so concluding remarks for this part of the presentation, first, that you can see a shift on seasonal precipitation when you move from seasonal to extreme precipitation. So you can conclude that regional climate models actually add value to climate change. It is important because you see things that you don't see in the global simulations. That's a well-known thing, but you have to ask for funding, and why should I fund you to give me one simulation if we can like 30 simulations? Well, it's important. Second one, our research suggests that moist stabilization effect will dominate the stabilization effect of the enhanced warming in the upper atmosphere for this period. And the final is that higher instability, when models simulate higher instability, they tend to produce positive precipitation in the warm season. So this is important because we may explain why they have so different sign and magnitude of changes in this region. So with that, I finished the first part of my presentation, and I will move on to, very quickly, what are we doing in Chile with the world stack simulations? Because I really appreciate the effort that NCAR does to lead this effort, to push this effort, and we are using it in a very different things. The first thing, this is the job of Camila Tapia, one of my master's students. She's analyzing like very severe precipitation events. We are like contrasting observations with the simulation, the control simulations, and also we see what are the expected changes in precipitation when the pseudo-global warming. And the things that she has found is when you look at scales, at temporal scales and spatial scales, you can see a lot of things happen. For instance, here the daily accumulated precipitation tend to diminish in small areas, even when they increase in larger area. But in this short event, you can see this analysis with Dave area relationship, you have an increase, significant, 60%, 70% of precipitation compared with the historical one. So, and this is very important because all the, the sewer, the bridges, a lot of things are designed with this kind of stuff. And the global and regional models doesn't have this temporal resolution to look at. So this is very important and may open broad opportunities for the community. The second work is from my student Mariana. She is analyzing regional climate models and the world stack simulation also, and she performed here the added value for the world stack simulations compared to ERA 5. Like you see this equation here. This is a measure of what is the bias of the forcing, for instance, the global simulations compared to a reference product, in this case, a gridded product for precipitation in Chile, compared to the bias of the mean bias of the climate simulation, in this case, the world stack simulations. When you have a positive value, is that your simulation is performing better for this index than the reference, than the global simulation, in this case, ERA 5. So as you can see, the world stack simulations is dark green, blue. So it outperforms ERA 5 simulation for all the continent. And this is a result for the RX 1 day estimate. So it's a pretty nice result. And when you see like the climate change from WRF, you see here like a strong positive sign. So this is like a new challenge that we have to incorporate when you speak to the people of the authorities about climate change, because again, it's just one realization. And when you compare like in the same transect, this is all the regional climate models. This cyan box plot is like the regional climate models that actually add value to represent the RX 1 day extreme, and this is world stack. So you see that is, again, very different from all the models, but also in the magnitude of precipitation. So a lot of things are happening here. More applications. Here are just a new, this is an undergraduate thesis. In Chile, we have undergraduate thesis. And Claudio, he's comparing the impacts of wind in civil engineering structure. In this case, I just present his result in potential wind energy. These are the changes of the maximum wind speed in the 10 meters above the surface. And you see here a strong positive signal. And this may be interpreted as an increase in the more wind energy available for the future conditions. And finally, I'm here because of my initiation project called, with this name, we want to study what are the impacts for using like coupled land surface simulations goes back to convection permitting simulations using WRF-SAC as a benchmarking. So I have two students working here, and we have just preliminary results in one small basin. Here is mainly barren in the arid Andes subtropics. And when you see like how the model performs with the snow water equivalent, this is NOMP simulations forced with WRF-SAC simulations. And you see that there's a good agreement between the snow water equivalent reanalysis and the NOMP simulations. This is not calibrated. And when you compare the surface runoff, you see that may be improved. Yes, we in hydrology work a lot with this tuning and calibrating things. So it opened us like an opportunity. The soil moisture field also looks reasonable for the thing, but when you look deeper, and you see like this is the one of the simulations of NOMP related to the runoff on the soil. And you see that the model tries to create like maybe the aquifer here, and this is pretty common in the arid simulations, hydrologically speaking, that we see a lot. So we now have several time to collaborate and to see how can we improve this and to explain what are the expected results for this whole experiment. So that's all. I think I really run with the presentation, but I appreciate your time and open to questions.
Great. To the point, which is great. Any questions for Miguel in the room? Yeah, Chris.
I was just curious on the RCM and WRF simulations. It seemed like you get greater destabilization in some key regions on land, and then also in more intense concentrated areas. Does the data set provide insight in like the temporal distribution of that? Like, is it become less reliable and more intense localized bouts with increased drought or aridity? Or
yeah, we have an issue here when we try to ask, for instance, people in Italy for the RAL simulations. The daily and sub-daily fields were not available in all the levels. So unfortunately, we use the monthly estimate for this, but so we couldn't address that. But I think with WRF-SAC we can do that.
Really nice talk. I'm curious about the stability decomposition, and if you looked at that on short time scales, because I imagine that the higher frequency signal might be quite different than the seasonal one.
Yeah. Of course, this is like quite maths, but you can see that at different temperature scales, and of course, if you look like very severe storms or short storm, you can see different things. Unfortunately, as we don't have the data at this test, we couldn't afford that. But I think that in the European Alps, they perform a similar analysis, but just with the dry potential temperature. And they explain like an index because they have like 6 hours and like create a composite of convective precipitation. But convection was tanned, is parameterized, not explicitly resolved. So there is a lot of things that we can still analyze. Thank you.
Yeah, Shanghai.
Yeah, hi, Miguel. Yeah, it's a short but interesting talk. We had a lot of email
Yeah.
communication before and never met in person. Anyway, I think I have several questions. Yeah, first question is, as you know, the previous studies, have reported that many, GCMs and RCMs have apparent weight bias in over the Andes in the historical climate simulations.
Mhm.
So, I'm wondering, have you had a chance to look at the models you used? If they also have a similar bias, or maybe not that obvious.
Yes, I have participated in some studies when we analyzed like rank simulations based on past performance and code genealogy, and look up in what part of the domain the models performs better. We have that results in Chile, but for extreme precipitation, I think Mariana will hope to submit his thesis soon, and we're performing this kind of analysis. So we are actually, for every regional climate model, are telling where and how much they add value compared to the forcing. So there are a lot of things happening here, and this is one of my areas of interest. But yeah, for instance, if you can see climate projections, it's very different to move from a 10% to a 60%. No?
No. So any thought about this model, this common model deficiency, how could affect the robustness of the projected precipitation changes over the subtropical? This model uncertainty, do you think it has a big impact or has no impact? And speculation on the projected.
Well, we have tested the world-size simulations as an input for surface hydrology models, conceptual symbols, and it has a lot of usefulness in almost all the catchments that we experiment. When you look at the biases and the forcings, you have a unit bias in the world side compared to the other products.
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily wolf, you look at quite a few RCMs from projects,
But for a model that is not constructed with data, surface data, it's quite impressive, these results.
And there one slide you show the comparison between the offline no-IP and the observed SWI. So I'm wondering, the SWI is from the in-situ observation or from the satellite observation?
Yeah. The first panel here is from snow water equivalent reanalysis constructed with Landsat imagery. So it has 30 meters of resolution.
Okay.
So it's compared like in a distributed scale. And the surface runoff is in the outside here of the basin. We actually measure here. Yes. Well, we have in South America we have very less observational data. We don't have, for instance, radars, but we have some experiments here with near natural water chutes with low human intervention, and we can understand better the water cycle and energy and mass balance. And we are planning to explore comparison with remote sensing for soil moisture and for evapotranspiration. So we can have a picture of distributed behavior of the models and try to perform offline OMP simulations that behaves good with hopefully all the surface processes.
At least for the Swiss snowwater equivalent, looks like your results are very comparable to what we observed in over North America. You know, the non-MP10, I think the pattern usually will, captured about a little bit under.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good, thanks.
Other questions? Yes.
So, Miguel, when you look at the topography, the areas has really sharp gradients. I noticed your RCM, the highest resolution is 0.11 degrees, so it's about 110 kilometer resolution, right? So I'm just wondering if you consider using even higher, like 4 kilometer, 1 kilometer resolution, to really capture representing the complex terrain, the land sea contract, and then also the mountains, right? It's the range. I would think the high resolution would resolve the interaction of the local terrain, land surface topography with the larger scale circulations better, I guess.
Yes.
So, yeah, of course, that's very expensive to run.
Yeah.
And we also did some test experiment before for the Pacific Northwest, also as those mountains use high resolution. We compare with the extreme precipitation variable and temperature variables. High resolution definitely is value compared to the low GCM simulation. So I think resolution may be a big key here also.
Yeah. For this project particularly, we are working on the same scale of the worst acceleration, so 4 kilometers. But if you go to the European Alps, they solve like the physics like 100 meters. So there's a huge, and they say there's not enough resolution for the study. So it depends on what processes are the scales that you are aware. But yes, I have a lot of faith and effort put in this. Yes.
Anyone else? Okay, I do have one question. When you showed the changes in wind that one of your students was doing, yeah, I noticed, I don't know if I looked at the map correctly, but I thought when you showed the changes in extreme precipitation, it seemed like where you're showing the increases in wind coincides with that large increase in precipitation. Is that?
Yeah, this is.
Yeah, do you know what's causing that? Is that a specific flow
No.
pattern, storm system?
We can look at that.
Okay, yeah, because
Yes.
it just seems like a very
Yes, it is.
bright signal there.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool, thanks.
Thanks.
All right, last call, questions. Lillian.
Yeah, maybe not so scientific question, just wondering from your perspective, if you want to do better research or service to the society, what kind of a capability you feel you should equip? Maybe supercomputer, maybe good observation radar or other observational platforms or better training. Just curious from your perspective, what are the most important factors that you hope to have or equip to further help you research and service?
Now I am, working with models. So for that, supercomputers are necessary. And most of my students are working in the HPC from Chile. And even when it's an HPC for good standard, South America is pretty low compared with the Northern Hemisphere. So there's a gap there. But on the other hand, models are models. So you need observations to see if your models are giving current behaviors. For instance, the turbulent fluxes are very uncertain in this region. I want to look at that maybe 10 years, if I still like it.
For fluxes and for all these
Yes.
important coupling processes. Okay, good to hear. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the answer. answered.
Any other questions?
Yeah, maybe just one question, because I'm studying clouds, I'm wondering, did you analyze any like cloud changes in the future climate, like phases or like cloud cover changes over the Andes?
Not strictly, but we do have some like this common like catalog of extreme events, and we can see if they are produced by atmospheric river, stratiform precipitation from fronts, or convective events, and we can look in those events the changes, but we haven't done it yet. But with this kind of information, we can do a lot of things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? If not, let's thank Miguel again. Miguel will be around all week, so if you want to meet with him one-on-one, I sent up a sign-up sheet, at least to RAL. If you're in another lab, just reach out to me and I'll coordinate that. But thanks for coming, everyone.
Thank you.